my name's Suzanne Steinert, and I'm the founder and president of Beluga Whale Alliance. And we are here along the Turnagain Arm in our backyard, we like to say, of Cook Inlet, Alaska, which is critical habitat for our critically endangered Cook Inlet beluga whales. Our beluga whales have just started showing back up again this spring, chasing the runs of anadromous hooligan that swim up into the glacial rivers and streams in this region. So we're so excited to have them back. It's been a great morale booster for us during this challenging time with everything going on with the global crisis. And we're here today to read a book to you as part of Four Valleys Community Schools storytelling program. And this book is called Charlotte's Bones. It was released within the last couple of years by an author named Aaron Rounds and illustrated by Allison Carver. And this book is about the skeleton of an ancient beluga whale that was discovered actually in the hills of Vermont. And this beluga whale has been named Charlotte, and she swam around in a glacial estuary in Vermont back during the last ice age. And that estuary actually looked a lot like the one we're in here today. Back during that time, there were glaciers a mile thick, like there were right here as well. Last year, in 2019, Beluga Whale Alliance traveled back to the Northeast United States to Mystic, Connecticut, to the Mystic Aquarium, and attended the second International Conference on Beluga Whale Conservation and Research. And that's where we met the author of Charlotte's Bones, Aaron Rounds. So it was so exciting to meet the author of this book, Aaron Rounds, at the conference in Mystic, Connecticut, where we also got to meet our very first beluga whales in person for the first time. And Aaron was kind enough to sign a copy of Charlotte's Bones for us, making it out to Beluga Whale Alliance and telling us to dig deep and find your story. A message we really love. Years ago, when a sheet of ice up to a mile thick began to let go of the land, the Atlantic Ocean flooded great valleys that had been scooped out by glaciers, and the salty waves of an inland sea lapped the green hills of Vermont. Into this arm of the sea swam Charlotte. In 1849, a crew building a railroad through Charlotte, Vermont, dug up strange and beautiful bones in a farmer's field. A famous zoologist realized that the bones belonged to a beluga whale. But how could a whale's skeleton be buried so far from the ocean? The discovery became a key piece of evidence in new thinking about the age and evolution of life on Earth. Charlotte's Bones is a haunting, science-based reconstruction of how a small whale died 11,000 years ago in a tidal marsh, and how the marsh became a field, and what messages her bones whisper now about the strength and fragility of life on our planet. Many thousands of years ago, when a sheet of ice more than a mile thick began to let go of the land,
the Atlantic Ocean flooded great valleys that had been scooped out by glaciers, and the salty waves of an inland sea lapped the green hills of Vermont. Into this arm of the sea swam Charlotte, her milky smooth, muscled body sliced slowly through the water like scissors through silk. Like a chirping canary, her voice echoed across dark waters, showing the way to her pod as belugas have done for millions of years. Charlotte swam the ancient waters with her pod, diving deep for salmon and cod, shrimp and crab. One spring day, Charlotte swam too close to the grassy marshes and was trapped in a pool by the outgoing tide. She chirped a warning call, and others in her pod gathered just offshore, but they could only call to her in distress until the ebbing tide drove them away. Then Charlotte was alone. Her body came to rest atop the fine sediments of the estuary floor, and her final breath whispered across the waters. "I will return," the whisper seemed to say. Day after day, night after night, Charlotte was rocked by the tide. Her flesh disappeared, and her bones were covered slowly by thick blue clay and silt. Centuries passed, then thousands of years. The land lifted. The inland sea became a lake, and the marsh became a field near the lake. Woolly mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, and giant sloths disappeared from the land. Herds of muskox retreated far to the north. Charlotte's descendants disappeared from the lake, but still swam salty waters to the north and northeast. The descendants of the clams and mussels that were buried with Charlotte survived too, far from the field where Charlotte rested. Charlotte lay undisturbed for 11,500 years. Then, in 1849, while building a railroad between two towns, workers unearthed Charlotte's bones. Thinking the creature was a horse, they continued to chip away at the stratified clay until a man with an eye for unusual things spied the bones while out for a walk. He convinced the overseer to work somewhere else while the beautiful bones were collected and studied. A naturalist carefully removed the bones from the thick blue clay in which they were embedded. He eagerly examined each one. The bones whispered to him like the sound of surf and a seashell held to your ear. But what messages did the bones contain? No one knew how old the earth was or how much it had changed. The naturalist consulted leading scientists and reached a startling conclusion. In the middle of a farmer's field, 10 feet beneath the ground, the bones of a white whale had whispered the truth of the valley's distant past. Today, Charlotte can be seen in an exhibition hall miles north of where she died, and sometimes, when the hall is quiet, her bones still whisper. "I was alive, like you," they say. "Time goes by fast," they say. "The earth is both strong and fragile." And on soft summer evenings, when the whispers float down the museum corridor, out the door and across the valley, they say, "Don't forget me." If you choose to purchase Charlotte's bones, after reading Charlotte's story, the author has included a handful of pages where you can learn more about beluga whales, how beluga whales swam in the waters of Vermont during the last ice age, more about the geologist who discovered Charlotte's bones, and also information about the different types of ice age mammals that roamed the earth when Charlotte was alive. So much for joining us for this beluga story time, wherever you are in the world and in our local home community. If you're a member of our local home community or live here along the shores of Cook Inlet, it's so important to stay alert to see if you notice any beluga whales in distress that could be stranded on the mudflats like Charlotte was at low tide. If you're out walking along the shoreline or driving along the highway and happen to see a stranded beluga whale, it's important to call the 24-hour NOAA Fisheries Strandings Hotline immediately at 877-925-7773. Thank you all so much for doing your part to support the local and global conservation of beluga whales.
This has been a virtual story time with Four Valleys Community School based in the Turnagain Arm of Cook Inlet, Alaska.